Welcome to your Family Health Revolution conversation series with Carla Atherton and friends, where our HFF family comes together not to tell you what you should do, but what you can do. Take charge of your health. You can do this. In fact, you're the only person who can. This is Carla Atherton, host of the Children's Health Summit and the director of the Healthy Family Formula. And we are here today with a new series called Your Family Health Revolution Conversation Series. And I call it a conversation series with Carla Atherton and friends because I am doing a whole bunch of beautiful talks with trainees, past and present, with grads of the HFF HFF Academy, where I teach people or share information with people on becoming empowerment coaches, health empowerment coaches. So that's just such an awesome community, and I wanted to invite all these brilliant people to talk with me for you about a myriad of topics like near and dear to our hearts that are just integral, we think, to the health and wellness of your family. So here I am with Pat Mcginty, and I'm going to do a quick, hi Pat, and then I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to read your bio in a sec. Hi! Nice to have you. Thanks so much. We have surmounted the odds today. We've done that so that we could get together and squeeze this in between all the stuff that we have going on today. So I'm so happy you took the time. All right, so Dr. Pat Mcginty Phd is a licensed psychologist practicing in Louisville, Kentucky, with practically a lifetime of practicing in the field of psychology. After she received her master's degree in psychology from the University of Louisville, she initially taught as an adjunct professor of psychology after the birth of her second child and declined to accept the doctoral program offering because of her desire to have another child and be home with her children. Boy, I hear that. Although I did my studies like at the same time, I had a newborn. But anyway, that was crazy. Crazy times, right, Pat? So Pat has 4 children, 7 grandchildren that she visits regularly. Love it. She continued to teach part-time, did some annual Stanford University research on Head Start in the Louisville schools, and was active in parenting programs such as La Leche League. Oh man, they taught me so much. An international organization of nursing mothers, and in her children's school programs. After her 4th child, she returned to Spalding University to complete a specialist degree in counseling psychology, and then to the University of Kentucky for her doctorate in educational school psychology. Pat is licensed in Kentucky in both school and clinical psychology, having completed a pre-doctoral internship in the city public schools, and a clinical psychology postdoctoral internship in community mental health. Okay, I'm not done yet. We're not done with Pat, man. Like she said, she's got a lifetime of experience. She's worked for 15 years in the Jefferson County Public Schools and then 12 years at 7 counties community mental health centers, where she spent her last 7 years there as the director of a clinical psychology internship program before transitioning to full-time independent practice. She has been active in local, state, and national psychology organizations during her career and spent 8 years on the Kentucky Board of Psychology Examiners. Pat has been a lifelong learner. Me too. She always seeking to expand her skills in the service of children, adolescents, and families. She's trained in play therapy, EMDR for trauma treatment, and most recently in complex anxiety, which seems to be on the increase with the recent global health crisis. In June 2020, in her search for more training in health, nutrition, and holistic practices to understand and help her clients, Pat learned about Carla Atherton, that'd be me, and the Healthy Family Formula Health Coaching Program, and enthusiastically enrolled. I've been so blessed to have her ever since. Her family has been hit hard with current health crises since 2020 and she had to interrupt her training and attend to her own critical need for post-trauma self-care. Props to you, Pat, for doing that and caring for yourself. Yeah. Pat has grown through this difficult experience, and she is now sharing her insights on health-oriented treatment and care. So Welcome to the
Thank
conversation,
you.
Pat. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Funny though, I didn't actually say what we're going to talk about before I gave your bio. Okay, so our topic today is healing with connection, the art and need for
Mhm.
coaching, connection, and guidance. And you know what, Pat, with your like huge psychological mental wellness is what I call it, background, it's interesting though that I just finished recording with Heidi Rotha Guinness about the new psychology and the roadmap to mental and to emotional wellness. Actually, is what we talked about. So really good
Good.
piggybacking here. But today we're going to talk about more so like the coaching aspect. And as everybody knows, I just said you were part of my training program. So very, very like, and you've done a lot of speaking and all that stuff. So really, I'm just really excited to get started. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. I think it was 10 minutes. 10 minutes. No, it wasn't that long. But let's get
Don't worry
going.
about
So,
it.
all right. So Pat, you know what? I actually had a question first for you, but I want to actually know a little bit more about why you moved into, and I'm not here to tout my program, but I want to know why you shifted from like this clinical, aspect, which didn't seem like it was always completely clinical for you, into like something that's a little bit radical, like, a little more radical, like my program. What happened there? What was the transition for you?
I got interested in health, having worked with multi-league mothers and worked through that.
Right.
And throughout my training, I realized that something was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I could no longer see the benefits of some of the medical treatment that I was seeing. And I was having a hard time recommending it. And as I got healthier and got focused on my health, I knew my clients needed to. I had a very wise student who was, oops, excuse me, lost my ear.
Oh, her earpiece popped out.
Yeah. I had a very wise 17-year-old. I was trying to tell him how he needed to get healthy, if he was going to get over this anxiety and depression. He said, well, what do you know about it? You don't have any training in it. And that was probably, I would say, good 5 years before I started evolving and started catching up with you. And
Mm-hmm.
it started me thinking I had to be very conscious that I was not able to talk about that, even though I might experience I need to know about it. And the more I've gotten into it, I realize how many layers there are to unfold and trying to understand it and still doing that. It's a very complicated area. No wonder someone once says, just give me a pill. you know?
Well, yeah.
So that was a yeah. So the more I read, the more I thought I want to have more training. I want to be able to say, yeah, I'm a health coach too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can say, well, yes, I have been trained in this, and that was part of it. And that's what I've always done. I've always reached out and got training for a new area that I wanted to be in. That's the way I was taught. You get yourself trained before you step out and offer yourself.
Mm.
Unfortunately, coaches don't get looked upon as being those real experts. They don't have
Right.
to certify they're experts. But when you're in the field of psychology, you have to be able to say, yes, I've trained in it. You're acting outside your competencies if you aren't.
You know what's
So
so
that weighed on
interesting?
my. Mhm.
That's your, yes. And you know what's so interesting about that? Like, let's talk about that a little bit about the concept of the health coach. Because there are, like, like governing bodies that, claim to
Yes.
be able to, to accredit your school and all that kind of stuff. And like what's
Right.
so interesting is that even though I have a bazillion letters behind my name and I have this giant bio that looks almost like it's, really narcissistic or something like on my website, the reason for that is not so that I actually don't really like value, the letters.
Yeah.
Like I really actually don't. I did because I wanted to like check it off. But that was my personality. I wanted to. The more I knew, the more important I was, and the more value what I had to say has. But I think coaching is an art, and I think you can learn some tools and some things you can share with people. But the coaching aspect is all about connection. It's about communication. It's about actually being there and supporting rather than supplying all the answers. So with the accreditation, sure, I might have some letters behind my name, but really what I wanted to do with that lengthy, wordy bio is to show people my experience, not the tests I passed. but like I've dug into this and I've experienced this and I'm really interested in that because I want to be able to connect with the people that I work with by my own experience of it. And so sometimes that's not always comfortable. Like I know I watched like all of the trainees come into the class in the group, and I want you to tell me what you thought about this. So I see them get to month 2, month 3, and they're like, oh my gosh. And like things start happening in their lives. They start questioning things. They're like overwhelmed. The learning curve is like, because we're really talking about something that is very, well, it's undervalued for one thing, because we don't, like, people are used to paying a doctor or something, but they don't actually pay them, like, comes through the system or whatever. They don't feel it. And they're not used to having supports that are in this realm of health coach because it seems very fluffy, right? Like in the 90s, there were some people that did like performance coaches and like all this. That's when that stuff started happening, maybe even 80s, but 90s for sure. And then it was life coaches, but it's only people that have like a ton of money and they wanted to just, but now it's like, I think everybody needs some sort of health coach, like an empowerment coach, because it's not necessarily like someone that you pay or whatever, but it's some kind of like mentor or guidance, or like some people talk like gurus, but you have to be very choosy. And so I don't think there's such a thing as governance. I think it really is about that person and their connection, and there is an art to coaching. What do you think about that?
I agree. And I think governance usually ends up being a level of control, and that
Mm-hmm.
becomes more important. And then scrutinizing and all the other things that go into it, it's not necessarily supportive and helpful. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think I often, even in my reports, I'll say get some life coaching in parentheses, or I use the term health coaching for
Yeah.
some of them and say this piece of it follow up with, because I think that you want them to go to someone, and all health coaches are not the same.
Right.
Some have different expertise, so you've got to find that. And hopefully the person you're with is going to say, well, I don't know much about that. If you talk to so and so, that's certainly been my experience as I've gone through my own treatments with seeking people. They say, well, have you read so and so? Have you talked to so and so?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of been a journey. So
Yes.
in a sense, coaching, like health coaching, is a journey.
Yeah. I was just writing something down so I don't forget. Okay. So what I want to know what your definition is of a health coach and help people get oriented. And what I've been saying, what we do instead of like health coach, like so generic now, I call us health empowerment coaches, because it's,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll tell you why in a second, but I want to hear about what you think, like what a health empowerment coach would be, what we do.
Well, I think it's someone who has some information for you to consider, but knows that your journey is going to be different than maybe the last person they saw, and they're just providing you information and supporting you as you make the choices about it.
Mm,
It's a little bit like non-directive counseling or non-directive therapy, where you throw out these things, you have these discussions, and you say, "What do you think? What are you going to do about it?" So it's not they. I don't want them to have the impression that I'm going to come in with studying this and be able to tell them exactly what to do. But I could say, well, what I've seen and what I've read, and here are some books to look at. And that's kind of even now my approach. I
mm-hmm,
bring in copies of books and I say, have you read this book? Knowing I know what's in it, but if they don't want to read it and they're not interested, they're not going to do it. I
mm-hmm,
can't teach them a lot of these things directly,
mm-hmm,
no more than someone can teach a soccer player to be a great soccer. They have to experience and teach themselves.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing, I think health resides in the body, and I think the body is what heals. It isn't what I say, it isn't what they put into it. It's how they bring everything together in their body, and it's extremely complex, and it's a living, breed, changing, evolving kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's been my own experience.
Uh-huh.
That's what
Yeah.
you look at.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think that these are the points that we're always making, right? Like in our tribe, our family, HFF family, is that We
Right.
don't, and this is what I say to people all the time, like a coach, and some people actually say they're going to do this. I'm going to fix this. We're going to do this. We're going to cure you, la la la. Well, that's a goal that people have, perhaps, but none of us do this for other people. It's actually why so many people are so disheartened and not like and disappointed in the medical system because it is
Right.
making these claims, either our way or the highway, or this is better than that, or it dumbs our bodies down. But it's so disempowering, and
Yeah.
because it takes away the power. Like first, it's scary to say, okay, my coach isn't going to fix me. My doctor actually isn't even supposed to do that. They're here to assist me. My coach is here to support me in, like you said, the decisions that I make. But we also, and your friends, your mentors, other people in your life, children even, lead you in the directions that you could go. Like, so just yesterday, I was with some friends, and with my daughters were having a housewarming for their new apartment, so they're gone. And
Oh,
so I went there to celebrate with them. And my son came too, so we were there. My husband had to work, poor guy. But so we were I was talking with some friends, like with their roommate. They have one roommate and her parents, and they're like the best people ever. Like we have, what those people, you have the juiciest conversation. Like you just like you go,
right.
and you just can't get enough. They're
Right.
so interesting, and you don't talk about the weather. No, you talk about like stuff, the universe, right? So we were,
Right.
and just in that time that we spent together, we traded ideas and thoughts about like, I sent them a podcast, Michael Mead's podcast, actually, like such a beautiful podcast. And they
Right.
sent me like, another one, and we were talking about these ideas. And what we learned about from each other was like, oh, some leads for maybe this film class that he does, and we both had similar themes in the writing classes that I teach. And also I said I do this talk about the hero's journey in our practitioner training program,
Right.
even because it's such a heartbeat. It's the heartbeat of life, really, like our stories. And
Right.
so we were exchanging. That's what it is when you have a coach. It's not hierarchical. It might be that the coach has a little bit more information than you do, but they certainly don't have more authority. You're going,
Right.
everybody needs some kind of encouragement in one way or another. So it's encouraging, it is information, and the allowance and space for you to make your own decisions. And that's a big responsibility because some of us want to go,
Mhm.
I want to take a pill. I want that doctor to make that decision. Then I can blame somebody else if something goes wrong. And really, like, it's just after a while, you go, you know what? It's not worth that to me to stay in
Right.
this perpetual state of feeling like crap. Really,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Right.
I don't want to feel like crap anymore. So I thought, yeah, so I wanted to just jump off on that. So I always tell people, okay, we don't tell you what you should do, we tell you what you can do. Isn't that a shift, right? We tell you so
Yeah.
there are lots of coaches going out there telling people what they should do still, right? But we want to shift people into this idea that you got it in you, man. Like you have the answers, you have the wisdom. You just have to remember that you do, because we've been told we don't, and
Right.
that's not even true. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So, okay, I
The
have a question
body's
for you.
wisdom.
It's body, the
Okay.
soul,
Body.
the right, the
Right.
mind. It's all together. That wisdom of the being of
Right.
yours. Yeah. So I
Right.
want. Okay, enough of my rah rah. Coaches are also cheerleaders, I have to say, and that's kind of fun part too. But
Yeah.
so what do I just want to talk about connections for a little bit. Because that group, like, so we've been doing, like,
Yeah.
you experienced the group program, but also like group programs for, like just wellness in general, or mental health, like
Hmm.
mental, emotional wellness stuff, or
Hmm.
body, physical, all that stuff, like being in the group. I want to talk about that a little bit, the benefits of that, what that might be. And I'm just wondering, Pat, if you've led any groups actually in your history of all of the work that you've done, okay, and how you found that, and
Yeah.
also connection. I want to hear what have to say about that first, because I have a few things I want to
I
add.
thought that was really interesting when you were talking, because the thought that went through is we're just messengers. We have messages to share, and it's your choice about it. At one period of time, 1 year, I led 20 groups of juvenile delinquents in a
Whoa.
program I was working in a week. So
Yeah.
yes, it was pretty intense, but I love group work. I think it's the best way to learn, and I look to the day that when our health and empowerment coaching is done in a group
Mm-hmm.
rather than in I
Mm-hmm.
not so I like the live groups better than I do, although we're
Yeah.
obviously by distance can't, but wherever possible I like to do the live groups because the energy is so much better. I've seen seriously depressed kids help each other like you wouldn't believe and get well in the process. So I'm
Yeah.
all for grouping, you know. And so that would be my hope is that someday we just have these people who come together and say, we got to talk about it. Well, that's what we used to do though. My relation league group was mothers who got
Mm.
together and talked about, got this problem. What do you think? And oh, I didn't know you could bake bread. Oh, okay. Yeah, have you read such a, that was what got me to be a better mom
Mm.
and a better therapist in terms is by knowing all that process. So I think connection is really important. And I think the first thing you do, even as a therapist, is if there isn't connection, my saying to my clients is, I don't choose you, you choose me. Come
Mm-hmm.
if you want, but if you don't choose me, I'm okay. But if you're here and I can help you, then I'm glad we can work together. And that's where I start.
Love
And it
it.
works. I enjoy it so much better than having to be the expert
You're
and having to
so good
tell
at
them
it.
what to do. Well, it's
Yes.
taken years to get here. I
Yeah.
had to outgrow my young therapist idea that I was full of all the ideas, you know. But it makes it so fun. I don't want to retire.
Right? Well, and and the thing is too, is that you recognize your own humanness in this whole process and where you're at,
Yeah.
and then and you're really there to shine lights. Because if we purport to know everything, which we think experts should do, experts, and then they think they should do it
Right.
too, then there's this whole burden of other people's lives on your shoulders, and then you cope by not caring anymore because you can't care about all that if you're responsible for everybody. So remember that leadership model we talked about where the whole world is on your
Oh,
shoulders and you're like,
right.
can't keep it up. And then you shouldn't because you're taking away other people's agency and you're also taking on things that's not yours to take on. So it's a
Right.
lose-lose situation. So when you have the coaches that are literally doing their own work like you, Pat, you're doing your own work and you're realizing that other people are capable of doing their own work. You just are there to support them, and then everybody's like, it's effortless, actually. You're not going,
Right.
oh man, my client or my sister or my kid is calling me and they're gonna want to suck the life out of me. No, like you can be that.
Right.
Right? Like they can do it. You're there to support it rather than take it on. Because I used to do that all the time. I was that teenager
Right.
taking on everybody's crap, and like it was just like, no, it wasn't a good thing. That's why I started my psychology degree in the first place. And I
Right.
bailed, by the way. I've done other things, as you know, but yeah. And so let's go back to your groups, okay? Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be total poo poo. And I'm going to actually challenge what you said about juvenile delinquents. Because you know what we've been doing, right? Okay, why do you think I might challenge that?
I'm sorry. Repeat the question.
Why
What?
do you think I might challenge that? The terminology juvenile delinquent. I have to
Well,
totally ask
because
you.
they are. I think there are so many problems they had that gave them what appear to be no choices.
Yeah.
I mean, as one of my young Appalachian teenagers said, well, if I needed something, I just went to Walmart and got it because there was no money. There was nothing to do. And
Mm.
it's a survival. Granted, some of them learn some really bad stuff and some of them do some really bad stuff. And some of them
Mm.
never learn to change, but it wasn't anything I could change for them,
Yeah.
and they
Yes.
didn't help.
Well,
But I mean, that was the terminology they used. They called it the juvenile detention center, the treatment center, but the treatment was questionable
yeah.
at
Well, you
times.
know what? Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm all about the language, right? Like I'm all about the
Oh
language. I
yeah.
teach
Right.
writing and I am like healing through the written word, all that, and the medical model and how we position and we label and all that stuff, right? So when we use the word delinquent, right? Like, so this is something that I used to think in these terms, like, and I know you don't think in these terms at all. But it's those terms that go, oh, there's something, I'm going to let you get your earpiece. You can hear me? There's something wrong with you, right? Like you're delinquent. And rather than seeing that person's, I guess they're like, yeah, you were just saying there's no choice there. There's like, there's all these things that happen that make them unsafe, right? And this is why the community is so important, and the groups that you were talking about, because they were able to enter a safe place where their survival was not at stake, right? Like in that moment, your survival is not at stake. You're in the tribe, and when you're in the tribe, you're safe. As soon as you're out of the tribe, you're not safe. You're vulnerable to the sharks in the water, or the bears in the woods, or like all that. You're vulnerable, and so the nervous system will respond in that way. So when we coach, we actually help people, or not help. I don't want to use the word help. We support people in their healing process. Just that support alone is assisting people in their healing process. Like literally, you will see people feel better, think more in that safe, because you need to be in rest and digest to repair, right? Or to reharmonize. So it's even that presence that is so profound, and we don't have to. Like, we always want to make things complicated, right? We need, and I do it too. Like I make this giant plan, and the supplements, the diet, the rest, the exercise, not all these checked off the list. But I think the most important thing is the connection. Like if we just do that one thing, they'll start to do this and that, and it's safe, and they've got the space, and they can think, and they can allow, and they can listen to their bodies and say, hey, when I eat that, it doesn't feel good. Because first they need the connection, the safety, safe place.
I agree. And I think probably one of the most important things that's come up in the last few years to me in my profession is the research showing that people's benefits from treatment depend on what they believe and expect. Even antidepressants in some of the research and lots of the other drugs are 60% placebo. And I don't like the term placebo, but it means if I don't think that's going to work for me, it probably isn't going to work for me. And so empowerment allows people to make choices that they believe will work for them. I don't think if I take vitamin D every day it's going to keep me healthy. If I have no belief in vitamin D is going to keep me healthy. I think we set up our systems to respond to it.
Yeah, totally do. We totally do. And I love like the work of people like Joe Dispenza, right? Where he's like, okay, clear everything out, be in the space in between, so that you can live in possibility. And it's not even having expectations. Like, of course, we have goals. We're like, I really, really, really don't want to feel like this anymore. And some people are really suffering, right? Like they really feel horrible, and mentally or emotionally or physically, or all three usually at the same time. Usually that comes in a package. But to not even have any expectation at all, but more looking forward with curiosity. And what is this like leading me to, and what could I have that's not recreating yesterday? That like those kinds of things, the possibility. And I think in groups we have possibility. But baby therapy, that's hard math involved in that stuff too. But baby therapy, like there's like I was reading an article like years ago about these kids that like inner city kids, and they went and like held babies in this like, I don't know where the babies were, like some grouping, and they got all these babies together, but they were smiling and laughing and joyful. These hardened kids that were like put all this armor around themselves, because like probably a lot of kids you worked with, Pat, exactly like that, and you throw a baby in their arms and everything changes. They're connected, and then they see other ones like that, and it's like, oh, I don't have to be like the way I was before I entered this room, because there's another possibility for me, and I'm not alone. And I'm not alone in what I came in here with, and I'm not alone in the transformation, and I'm not alone in actually having a heart and letting myself be vulnerable, right? So I
Right.
love that. Like, I love the babies or animals will do that,
Right.
and yeah, and it can be a little, scary for people. Like you were talking about going into groups. I even sometimes I go, I don't know if I want to go to that group. It's gonna be a little weird. Like, I don't know if I want to do that
Oh,
breath work
yeah.
group. Like, and then and I get there and I either like it or I don't. So you don't like it. Who cares? Go find your
Yeah.
tribe. Go find it, right? Go find another one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. So we talked about connection, and there's a lot of research out there about that. And I'm not even all about the research. I mean, I love books and I find it so interesting, but I like the
Right.
experience and people talk experientially about it. So, I mean, I just encourage people who are listening to think about that. Like where do you find
Hmm.
that? And just know that, like in the blue zones, for instance, people who live like, or the centurions or whatever, as centurions,
Hmm.
they live like 100 years old on average, in a lot of these areas, and it's of
Hmm.
course good food and all this stuff that we also coach people on, the lifestyle stuff, because we want to take care of ourselves in every capacity, not in a frenzied
Right.
fearful way, but in an empowered, you're inspired to do it. It's like, oh, I have to eat
Right.
my broccoli. It's like, I get to eat this beautiful food. It's such a different shift, right? So we've
Right.
got all that,
Right.
but there in those communities, one of the things is connection. They sit and watch the sunset. Like there's a group of these guys in this neighborhood, and they all watch the sunset after they work, or they play mahjong or something like that every Saturday, or like the kids get together and play ball in the field, at noon on Sundays or something. Whatever it is, those
Hmm.
communities are the healthiest communities.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. All right.
And we've
So,
lost that.
pardon? I
We've
think
really
it's,
lost. We've lost that over the past couple of years in some settings, and people are having to say, listen to a program the other day, and they were talking about connection again. So, in terms of
mm,
getting Kelly Brogan's group with a psychiatrist was talking about connection and such, and get together and be with people, and those are things that are thriving now. Look at Zoom. Look how many people are flocking to Zoom
I
classes, and
know.
you
Yeah,
know, a qigong class will have 800 people all over the world sitting there,
yeah,
taking it all together. Granted, it's a big picture, but
yeah.
they're still experiencing something. It's not the same, but it's far better than sitting alone in the room or doing it by yourself.
It is, and you know what though? It's dual because I was talking to a
Yeah.
friend. I actually mentioned this. Heidi actually mentioned Kelly Brogan too. It's funny, like the conversation we just had this afternoon, and then I also mentioned this how we're talking about like this illusion of disconnection too, because even when we're alone, we're not actually alone. So like let's say your mother and your children
Right.
aren't around. You're always connected. It's an illusion that you're not. And so also there's that cultivation of the connection to the self. And so what we coach people do also is to reconnect with themselves. Like, what makes me feel better? Not what someone told me should make me feel better. What
Mhm.
do I do with myself and my time? Not what someone else told me I should do with myself and my time, but how does that make me feel whole, make me feel well, and how do I move through all this stuff? And like there's so much stuff that we're told rather than being allowed to or not allowed, but like given the space
Mhm.
or just taking the space to
Mhm.
experience it. That I think that's where the art of coaching comes in, because we recognize that. So the connection to yourself is actually, I don't know if it's first and foremost, but it's definitely parallel to connection to others. So it's like lots of elements to that.
Yeah, Kelly Brogan also is doing a lot of things right now, which I think are uh, dealing with self alienation. I mean, that's a nice psycho term that says, who am I? What am I about? Is that me, or is that really me, or is that something else from somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's going on too. We have to really figure that. What does it mean to feel good in your body?
Yeah.
People think that those aches that you're supposed to have a new knee, when you get
Right.
a certain age.
Yeah.
You
And you're
know,
supposed to degenerate your brain. You know, it's supposed to, I mean,
right,
that's just going to happen. We just like, get worse and worse. And well, I think what the real tragedy is. And that's what I try not to be frustrated and come at things from a sense of like anger or, or blame,
all right,
right? But at the same, I'm not going to say but, I mean, no, I'm going to say and. This is an and, okay? And at the same time, though, not though, at the same time, I I see it as such a disservice that we're like perpetuating these ideas of disempowerment, of you
hmm,
can't, of take a pill, make it go away. All of these processes of your body are wrong. When everything the body's doing is actually exactly what it needs to do for
right,
survival. And so, what our job is to figure out how to support it, how to not pathologize it, how to not dumb down, but actually turn up the volume, right? So connecting to
hmm,
ourselves
hmm,
is really
hmm,
saying, like, if you look and go, well, I'm doing all these things, but I'm expecting to feel a certain way, or I'm a victim to
hmm,
a disease that happened to happen to me. I mean, yes, of course we're mortal, and of course we have struggle, but to look at it in
right,
a different way, that is more an empowered, more like autonomous with agency, then
hmm.
we suffer less and live life more. We become more
I
vital.
agree.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
So
Very
I
good.
okay, and I was just looking at one other note that I had, and I'm just making sure that mentioned that with you. But
Yeah.
I think that we covered a lot, Pat, like a lot. And do you have any like final thoughts about our topic, which is again, I'm just going to remind everybody, healing with connection, and maybe wholeness. The art and need for coaching,
Yeah.
connection, and guidance. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we finish off?
I guess people have to listen to themselves and listen to their bodies and pay
Yes.
attention. If it doesn't feel right to you and it isn't fitting, then pay attention to that and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stay stuck thinking that this is all it is, because things can change. There's something out there that will help.
Yeah.
And,
Always. Like infinite opportunities and possibilities. Infinite. Yeah.
and even if it's just learning how to lessen that problem, maybe it won't be totally gone away, but just how to see beyond that,
Hmm.
beyond the pain, beyond the things.
Yeah, and turn
You can
pain
do it.
into wisdom. Poetry, as I say in my writing group, turn pain into poetry. Yeah, see the beauty, or yeah, it's such an interesting transition when you start to think a little differently about this. So,
Right.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, Pat, thanks so much.
Okay.
Thanks so much
You're
for being
welcome.
with
Thank
me. It
you.
was great fun, and
It is fun.
have a great rest of your day.
I will. We'll be
All
back
right.
in touch.
All
Take
right.
care.
You too.
Bye now.
Bye.